G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 4th of September 2025. Now the war continues with the top story today, Vladimir Putin offering Volodymyr Zelensky peace talks in Moscow. Of course, there's going to be a huge disconnect between the reporting and the reality. Before I get to that, I'd like to thank the patrons and other supporters who help make this channel possible and invite you to join them through all my links in the link tree. Now, what am I talking about? Well, Putin has offered Zelensky peace talks. Daily Express has said Putin signals hope for Ukraine war end. Pretty reasonable. The Guardian, Ukraine offers retort for Putin messing around by demanding, I tell you, peace talks be held in Moscow. How dare you make me come and grovel at your feet for mercy? You know, like, hello, you're the loser? Anyhow, negotiations. Wow, SBS, a lunatic left organisation. Yes, well, they're not wrong. They're actually telling the truth here, folks. Putin did say he'll end negotiations, or he'll have to use force. So don't actually assume the source, being left-wing, is always going to be wrong, but occasionally they are right. Now, Japan Times has said pretty much the same thing, and other newspapers, well, more focused on Trump's response, basically Trump repeating what he has said before. So we have, of course, Macron having a dry hump of Zelensky. We have Japan Times reporting actual facts here. Kiev rail train was taken out by Russia, by multiple drones and missiles, completely gutted the train. Well, the Russian president has told Kiev on Wednesday, that was yesterday, that there's a chance to end the war with negotiations if you come to Moscow, security guaranteed, all the usual pleasantries. Zelensky went, bah humbug, and yet Donald Trump has announced that he is holding talks soon, or that he wants a halt to the fighting. Of course, the media are gleeful that he has, so they could say, because they point that out with every opportunity, but he's going to talk today to Ukraine's president, which means, yeah, he knows Russia's made the offer. Why aren't you accepting? Of course, the French presidency was also on the phone to Trump. Everybody's on the phone to Trump begging for more denouncements of Moscow, claiming that Russia's unwilling to negotiate. I haven't seen this big a disconnect since that little kid found out Minnie Mouse was a fat man in a suit. Now imagine if that fat man was in a suit was CNN, and CNN growing up is sitting there believing, totally racing from their mind that anything happened in the past, and still believing that Minnie Mouse is real and not a fat man in a suit. Yeah. Of course, Trump derangement is one hell of a drug, right, folks? But Trump, of course, has been asked to denounce Russia, and he says, well, his Russian counterparts know where I stand on efforts to, and in a, well, Al Jazeera calls it a thinly veiled threat, of course, but he wasn't specific. But he's saying that he's planning to talk with Putin in coming days, but the Russian leaders was already unaware. He was asked, hey, what are you going to do about Russia? Well, they know my position where I stand and my efforts. And if nothing comes of this, whether it'll be happy or unhappy, we'll find out and you'll see things. And when asked, does he haven't done enough, he says, you know what? You wait and see, because we're going to get into phase 2. He called out the Polish for basically demanding more sanctions, saying, well, I've said that he hadn't even done enough. And he's saying, yeah. And Trump brought up the sanctions recently on India, saying, well, we cut them off from India. We're cutting off, these things take time because this is the problem. But of course, in Paris, Macron has reached 20%. Macron's unfavourability has reached 80%. Dissent is open. Talks to say behind the scenes to save the French economy continue. This has nothing to do with Trump tariffs. No, they're blaming Trump tariffs. It's the collapse of the luxury goods market, by the way, and the fact that people aren't spending. They're buying more Chinese knockoffs more than ever. It's China's the problem, and France has let them basically get away with it. France and America should have got together long ago and sanctioned China for copyright violations. But the French, we get you to do these sanctions so we can go around you through India and go, we sucker punched you yet again, America. Thank you for bailing us out in World War One, World War Two. We'll pay you back every opportunity with a stab in the back. So, key events. There was fighting. There were drones. There were missiles. There was lots of whining. Russian troops have claimed about half of Kupiansk, according to Al Jazeera. Ukraine's 10th Army Corps have rejected that claim, claiming that it was propaganda videos and doomed to fail. And, wow, yes, Zelensky definitely needs a narcissist test. Well, anyhow, Putin's announcements, Donald Trump asked for a meeting and Putin invited him to Moscow. What more could you want? Well, apparently the world, according to Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, the usual suspects of belligerence, low intelligence, and Trump derangement. However, no one is without sin, and Ukraine decided to sin by saying Putin is messing around and making unacceptable proposals. Putin says, hey, this is a serious proposal. And Zelensky says, so what, man? I'm up for a meeting anytime. And then Macron chimes in and says, oh, no, first we're going to have preparatory work. And then they call, and then what they do? Call a coalition that's willing to support Ukraine and demand more money from the United States, more help, more money, and more sanctions. It's like, and people out there actually support Kiev. Tens of thousands every day watch pro-Ukrainian channels, drooling and dribbling over the propaganda. Putin did exactly as Trump asked, and Zelensky failed to meet him. How is this Putin's fault? Oh, it's unreasonable, says all the Ukrainian pigeons. Now, regional security around the world is decreasing, thanks primarily to China. India playing both sides of the map. India striking Pakistan merely for looking at them, merely because India wants to flex its muscles and send China a clear message. Of course, BRICS is not a friend. BRICS is not united. Now, if we look around the map today, you see nothing about multiple drone and missile strikes, just blabbering by Zelensky, though there is a mention of a Russian attack, only one person killed, allegedly. So it was an empty train. And it doesn't say exactly where it is. Oh no, that was Kiev, August 28th. So, alright. I mistook. Well, there was a drone attack, at least on Odessa, and an unspecified building was on fire caused by drone strike. There was also drone activity in Nowinski. Alright, so there was fighting up here in the north, near north of Sumy, north of, in the buffer zone, north of Kharkiv, fighting in and around Kupiansk, although, according to the Ukrainians, we repelled them. Despite Al Jazeera, a friend of Ukraine and very friendly to Ukraine, putting the Russians clearly inside the city multiple times, and they have actually come down, as I said they would. They get stopped at one point, they come down another. They continue their fighting in multiple areas. And, of course, the map suddenly decides, no, we're not going to update the map. We're just going to update the ads instead. So, fighting north of Lyman. Very little to report there, though there is lots of fighting. And there's a breakthrough towards Silversk. Not much of one. And we'll see where that turns. No fighting in Chavashar reported, although fighting towards Krominsk resumed, with lots of fighting here on the road to, south of the road to Krominsk. But the Russians are closer to Krominsk than before, though they have not done, they have not taken much land here, but they have taken some, and they're consolidating their positions, moving men and equipment. They've taken some land here, not much. They've made very little progress here, but fighting continues. They are fighting in Pavlovsk. They're keeping up the pressure on Pavlovsk. The Russians are fighting at... They've consolidated their position along the front line here at Ulavine and back in Ulavine. So, fighting here as well. Again, as I said, to stop the Ukrainians coming in around the flanks. The Russians are fighting here. Though there's not much fighting elsewhere, though there's little changes to the map. Predominantly putting pressure on Orlov and other areas, particularly the road to Zaporozhye. Now, Ukraine, of course, has drone striked before, but nothing really of consequence. Now, an interesting take is Maria Zakharova, who is the Russian spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry. She works for Lavrov, though that technically still makes her part of the Putin administration. She is a deputy. She would be taking Lavrov's position if he stepped down, which is unlikely. She is more likely. I have heard many times that Lavrov isn't interested in presidency or prime minister, that he is going to stay foreign minister until he dies or the Putin administration ends. But she has indicated that she would like a promotion of sort, but for now is happy where she is. So this is why there's very little changes to the Putin administration, is that People are particularly selected for their skills and desires and abilities, and while there is someone more senior than them, they don't try to queue jump. This happens in a lot of countries. I know it's foreign. I know it's foreign to Americans, but if you want aggression, take a look at China. And you'll see what happens when the government is full of aggressive liberals. Now, the US president has been praised by the Russian Foreign Ministry, and of course you can hear the howls of 132 cat ladies in chorus. Putin puppet! But, according to the Foreign Ministry of Russia, Barack Obama received the Nobel Prize for nothing. In fact, in her opinion, he was granted the prize so that he wouldn't plunge the world into conflict. As you know, he's known for his daily drone strikes and aggressive foreign policy, which has led to the deaths of millions. But of course, he didn't understand anything about world affairs and would get into trouble. And he needed to appease his dragon, basically, his aggression. Trump came to save America, not the universe, not the world, America. And according to Zakharova, America's in serious trouble, to put it mildly. But of course, liberals will howl in unison. But take out the top 10 cities, the gun violence drops way off. Take out the 13% recidivists, and 50% of your crime immediately falls. These stories are hollow. Drones destroyed. No. Rostov, just that's about it. Battle Group West destroying more drones. More of the same. Nothing really there. More drones seen heading towards Russia's western regions over the Black Sea. Yeah, they were destroyed. They were destroyed. And of course, the battle group has inflicted 1,370 losses on the Ukrainian troops in one day. The couple of tanks, trucks, etc. Nothing. It's just statistics. The real world focus right now is on China, and it's a paper tiger, but it still has some teeth. Although a lot of men are trying to figure out if this one doesn't have teeth or not, and definitely looks like someone's dream date. Anyhow, Biden era politics have been blamed for bringing Moscow and Beijing closer together. Trump is out to change things, and Russia actually seems to feel comfortable where they are and blasted Washington's Cold War mentality and pledged to work towards a fairer, more equitable model of international relations. Of course, there's Modi having a good old laugh with Xi Jinping about countering American aggression in Southeast Asia. Because India and China are having a Cold War tussle over Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar. Myanmar and Laos, of course, are heavily influenced by, and so is Cambodia, by China. But India, of course, in Malaysia, and they're looking to expand into Myanmar. Pete Hegseth, of course, given the green light to come up with a plan. He was asked to make a plan to deter joint Russian and Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. hoping that if there was a Taiwan conflict, the Russian fleet in Vladivostok would remain. What would happen if the Russians joined in? They hoped the Russians would not. And if they did, what's the plan? However, unacknowledged by Ukraine and later denounced as propaganda, Russia has taken Novosibirsk, according to Sputnik. We've seen this before. Russia takes a town. It can take a day to a week before it shows up on a map. Sometimes this could be because Ukraine is engaged in counteroffensives or still holding on to the last fragments of the town. We saw this with Chasiv, where Russia prematurely claimed control, although a month later they did kick out the Ukrainians. And for now, the Ukrainians are out just outside of firing range of well, not too far out, but they're outside, just on the outskirts of Chasiv, sitting there with their arms crossed going, we still control Chasiv. But that's where we're at, all right? That's basically, I think a lot of Ukrainians are more focused on what's happening inside Ukraine than the war. And news on that front is very little. The manhunt continues, and Zelensky is pretending that it's a Russian agent and Russian saboteurs are behind everything wrong with the Ukrainian economy. And he is, of course, blameless. Blameless, I tell you. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, which you can find in the description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.